My name is Makai, and today we'll be talking about the origins of slavery in British colonial America. My thesis is the origins of slavery in British colonial America emerged from the convergence of labor shortages, economic incentives, and racialized legal codes. While early colonies relied on indentured servitude by the 1600s, elites deliberately transformed temporary servitude into a permanent, hereditary, race-based system of slavery in order to protect their economic interest and maintain control after Bacon's Rebellion. So the story of slavery in the British colonies really began with indentured servitude. In the early 1600s, most of the labor in places like Virginia came from poor Europeans who signed contracts to work for a set number of years in exchange for passage to America. But by the late 1600s, fewer and fewer Europeans wanted to come under those harsh terms. Planters needed more permanent labor to keep up with this tobacco production, though. We start seeing this shift. At first, the lines between indentured servitude and slavery were blurry. People like Elizabeth Key would use loopholes to actually win their freedom in court, but laws in Virginia would close those loopholes. In 1662, lawmakers said that children would inherit their status based off their mother, meaning that slavery became hereditary. In 1667, they made sure that baptism didn't change someone's status. Prior to this, Christianity offered a path to indentured servants and slavers to freedom through baptism. By 1669, they even protected masters from punishment if they killed the slave during punishment. Prior to this, it was inhumane and a felony to do so, showing just how dehumanizing the enslaved people have become with this passings of these laws. And then, of course, in 1676, Bacon's Rebellion happened. Poor whites and black rose up in unity never seen before against the elite planter class, and that terrified the wealthy. Their solution was to divide the labor force by race. They gave poor whites small privileges while making slavery a rigid race-based system. That's why by 1691, we see bans on interracial marriage, all designed to keep poor whites and blacks from uniting ever again. You can even see the effects to this day. You can see how the South exists due to their promises from the planter class. The evidence from our course really shows how deliberate this shift was, though. First, the lecture on slavery explains that Elizabeth Key's freedoms suit in 1655, her victory used English law and Christian identity to argue for her freedom, but the very fact that she won pushed lawmakers to rewrite the rules so no one else could. This tells us the system was being built law by law in reaction, not in action, to its cases. Take a look at the Virginia laws themselves and how they were built in place to dehumanize black people in general. The Virginia law of 1662 that made it so a child is determined, freedom is determined based on their mother. The Virginia law of 1667, which made it so that Christian baptism did not make you free. The Virginia law of 1669, the act about casual killing of slaves is what it was called, which made it so the master was no longer a felony if they killed you in the act of punishment, quote unquote. The Virginia Law of 1691, which was designed to block interracial couples to make black people look more like a commodity and less like humans. And just regulate slavery, they redefined it. For example, tying the children's status in 1662 of the mother was a complete break of the English tradition, but it guaranteed that slavery would be expanding naturally. We also have Bacon's Rebellion as a turning point. The lectures explain how the elites realized that the poor whites and the blacks had too much in common. After 1676, they pushed hard on racial divisions, giving white indentured servants more privileges and permanently tied blackness to slavery. The colonies were built on ideas of liberty, built on ideas of freedom. At the same time, though, they were cementing ideas of racial slavery, building it onto their history. This is a contradiction of the nation itself. This is the contradiction of the heart the nation was trying to build. Jerry Kang, a very smart man on TED Talk, had a talk on Immaculate Perception. He explains how biases can be constructed to feel natural. This is exactly what happened. The elites built these biases, and so to the common people it felt natural. To people born into it, it felt natural. These laws and divisions didn't come out of nowhere. They were intentionally created so that over generations, racial slavery would become common sense. It would show how social systems teach people how to see race and power over time. To sum it up, slavery in British colonial America was deliberate. It was built through economic, law, and social control by the elite planter class. In the 1600s, indentured servants were falling out of favor, and so when the planter class realized that, they needed a working population, and so they indoctrinated a system of racial slavery built into America. Thank you for listening.